My family took out a $170,000 loan in my name, gave $85,000 to my twin brother for parties and trips while I worked 2 jobs through college. But when they stopped paying our agreement and ghosted me completely, I sued them and forced them to pay everything back. Now the family is destroyed and they call me a monster. I'm 23 years old, graduated from college about 6 months ago with a finance degree, and basically my entire family betrayed me in the worst way possible. I'm writing this because I need to get it out of my system, and also because maybe someone else is going through something similar and needs to know they're not alone. The thing is, my parents, Jennifer and David, literally took out a $170,000 loan in my name and gave half of it to my twin brother to blow on parties and trips. Yeah, you read that right. But let me start from the beginning, because this is insane from start to finish. I grew up in a family I always thought was relatively normal. I mean, we had our problems like everyone, but nothing out of the ordinary. My twin brother Carter and I were always very different, like complete opposites. I was the one who got good grades, the one who worked part-time since I was 16, the one who saved every dollar I earned. Carter was more the creative type, I guess, always talking about being a model or influencer or something like that. He didn't go to college, which is fine. Everyone has their own path, right? But looking back, I should have noticed the signs of favoritism way earlier. My mom always said things like, Carter needs more support because he's finding his way, or, you're so responsible, Ethan, Carter is still maturing. I let it slide because, I don't know, I guess I thought that's how moms were, trying to protect the son who seemed more vulnerable or whatever. When I started college, my parents told me they would help with my education, but that I would also have to take out student loans. Totally reasonable, honestly. We did the calculations together. Well, that's what I thought, and we agreed it would be like $85,000 total for all 4 years. It was a lot of money, I'm not gonna lie, but it was manageable for someone with a finance degree. You know what I mean? Plus, I worked throughout college. It's not like my parents were supporting me 100%. I had 2 part-time jobs, some semesters, worked at the university library, and also did tutoring. Basically had no social life because I was obsessed with graduating with the least amount of debt possible. During those 4 years, Carter kept living with my parents, doing occasional photo shoots, going to the gym constantly, posting photos on Instagram. My parents paid for everything. Absolutely everything. His gym that cost like $200 a month, his car a used BMW but still, a BMW, his designer clothes, everything. When I went home for holidays, Carter was planning trips to Miami, to New York, always posting pictures at beaches or clubs. I thought he was making money with his modeling career, or that my parents were just supporting him more because, I was in college becoming independent. It bothered me a little, I'm not gonna lie, but it wasn't something that kept me up at night either. I was too busy studying and working to think much about it. I graduated, in December, got a paid internship at a pretty decent investment firm like 2 weeks later, and was starting to put my life together. Rented a small apartment with a friend from college. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, I was proud. I was finally starting my real adult life. In my head, I had this super clear plan of how I was going to pay off my student loans in like 10 years if I was disciplined with my payments and lived below my means. I had made spreadsheets, projections, everything. Because that's what I do. I'm the type of person who plans everything. And then that email came. It was from my bank, one of those automatic emails about my student loan account. I opened it while I was having breakfast. Like a normal Tuesday, at 7 inches the morning. It said my total balance was $170,438.42. I thought it was a mistake, obviously. I refreshed the page like 5 times. I called the bank immediately, like I didn't even finish my coffee. Just grabbed the phone and dialed. The person at the bank confirmed that yes, indeed, that was my balance. That the loan had been taken out in my name 4.5 years ago. That my parents were co-signers, but that legally, it was my debt. I felt like someone had thrown a bucket of cold water on me. I couldn't even process the information. $170,000. That was double what we had agreed on. Double. I called my parents immediately, like, My hands were shaking while I dialed. My mom answered, and I said, "Mom, there's a huge problem with my student loans. It shows I owe $170,000. It has to be a mistake." There was a long silence. Too long. And then I heard my dad in the background saying, "Give me the phone." My dad got on and said, "Ethan, we need to talk about this in person." And I said, "No, Dad. We need to talk about this right now because I'm literally looking at this number on my screen, and I'm about to have a panic attack." And that's when they admitted it. Just like that, over the phone, no warning, no preparation. My dad said, "Yes, we took out the full loan. We thought it was best for the family." And I said, "What does the full loan mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, you needed $85,000 for college, and Carter needed help with his career, so we took out $170,000 total and split the money between you two." I literally went mute. I couldn't speak. I think I said something like, "Are you kidding?" But my voice sounded weird, like someone else was talking. My mom took the phone and started with her typical manipulative tone, saying, "Ethan, honey, we did it because we wanted to be fair to both of you. You're both our sons, and you deserve the same opportunities." And I said, "Mom, but Carter didn't go to college. What did he need $85,000 for?" And she said, "Well, for his modeling career, so he could network, travel to the right cities, invest in professional photo shoots, all those things." And I just thought, this can't be real. This can't be happening. I told them I was heading to their house immediately and hung up. I drove like 40 minutes to my parents' house. The whole time my brain was in total panic mode. I was trying to do math in my head, how I was going to pay this, how many years it would take me if I could even live a normal life with this debt. When I arrived, Carter was there too, sitting in the living room with a protein smoothie like nothing. My parents were on the couch, my mom already with teary eyes preparing for her dramatic performance. I walked in and said, "Explain to me exactly what happened, because I don't understand how you could do this without telling me anything." My dad immediately got defensive, saying that they were the parents and they made the decision they thought was best for their children. That Carter also deserved a chance to pursue his dreams just like I pursued mine. I said, "Dad, but the difference is my dreams came with a college degree and a real job, and now I have a debt that's technically mine and I'm going to be paying until I'm 40. What does Carter have to show for his $85,000? My mom started crying, saying she couldn't believe I was being so cruel to my brother, that family should support each other. And I said, "Mom, support doesn't mean taking out a fraudulent loan in someone's name without their knowledge." It was at that moment that I looked at Carter, who had been quiet this whole time. And I said, "Well, Carter, explain to me, what did you spend the $85,000 on? Do you have an incredible portfolio, modeling contracts, anything?" And he shrugged, literally shrugged, and said, "Well, bro, I had to go to New York several times, to Miami, to La. Those cities are expensive, and I had to buy decent clothes for photo shoots. And I had to go out to the right places to network. I couldn't show up at a Miami club without spending money, you know?" And I said, "Wait, are you telling me you spent $85,000 on trips and parties?" And he said, "No, bro. Not just that, also on the gym, on supplements, on my car, on photo shoots. But yeah, I guess a big part went to trips and going out, but that's investment in my personal brand." I felt the blood rushing to my head. I stood up and told my parents, "You have two options. You pay me back the $85,000 you gave Carter, plus the interest I've accumulated, or I sue you." Simple as that. My mom started crying harder, saying how could I threaten my own family, that she had given me life. My dad stood up and got all confrontational, saying I couldn't sue my own parents, that it would make me look like a monster. And I said no. What would make me look like a monster is letting you get away with it after committing basically financial fraud. Because that's what it is, fraud. You took out a loan in my name without my full consent, lied to me about the amount, and gave it to my brother to squander. Carter stood up and said, "Hey, bro, calm down. It wasn't squandered, it was invested." And I literally laughed, like a bitter, ugly laugh, and said, "Invested? Carter, do you have any return on that investment? Do you have contracts, campaigns, anything?" And he said, "Well, I have like 15,000 followers on Instagram." And I said, 15,000 followers don't pay a $170,000 debt genius. My parents tried to calm the situation, my dad saying we all needed to breathe and talk calmly. But I couldn't be there anymore. I told them you have 2 weeks to decide how you're going to pay me back or I'm getting a lawyer. And I left. The next 2 weeks were horrible. My mom called me every day crying, leaving me voicemails saying, how could I destroy the family over money? That money wasn't more important than family. My dad sent me text messages like, we need to talk like adults, and you're acting irrationally. Carter blocked me on all social media. I was devastated. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't sleeping well, barely eating. My roommate was worried about me. But I was also furious, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. It wasn't just about the money, you know? It was about the betrayal. It was because my own parents thought it was okay to lie to me for 4 years. It was because Carter literally spent the equivalent of my college education living like an influencer without any real plan. At the end of the 2 weeks, my parents asked to meet with me. We went to a neutral cafe, neutral ground, let's say. They sat across from me and my dad said, look, we recognize that maybe we didn't handle this the best way. Maybe doesn't mean we did it wrong and we apologize. It means maybe we should have told you differently. My mom added that they had been talking to a financial advisor and that they could pay me in installments. They said they could give me $2,000 a month until they paid the full $85,000. I pulled out my phone calculator right there and said that's like 42 months, more than 3 years, and meanwhile I'm still accumulating interest on the full loan. My dad said it was that or nothing, that they didn't have $85,000 in available cash. I accepted because honestly, I didn't know what else to do. I was a part of me that still couldn't believe I was considering suing my own parents. We made a written agreement, even signed it, where they committed to paying $2,000 monthly until completing $85,000. The first 3 months they paid on time. I started to relax a bit, thinking, okay, maybe this is gonna work. Maybe the family isn't completely destroyed. I was still angry, but at least they were following through. And then, in the 4th month, the payment didn't come. I texted them, nothing. Called them, they didn't answer. A week passed, 2 weeks, still no payment, and no response. Finally, my dad sent me a message saying they had had unexpected expenses, and that month they couldn't pay, but they would resume the following month. That next month they didn't pay either, or the month after that. Basically, they ghosted me. My own family was completely ignoring me. It was at that moment I knew I had no choice. I hired a lawyer. It cost me $3,000 just for the initial consultation and preparing the lawsuit. Money I didn't have, but I put on my credit card because I didn't see another way out. My lawyer reviewed all the documentation, the signed agreement, the loan records, everything. He told me I had a solid case, that my parents had committed fraud by taking out the loan in my name without my full informed consent, and that they had also violated our written agreement by stopping payment. We filed the lawsuit. My parents received the legal notification, and that's when all hell broke loose. My phone exploded with calls and messages from relatives, uncles, aunts, cousins, all saying I was a monster for suing my parents. My aunt even made a Facebook post without naming names, but obviously it was about me, about how today's youth doesn't respect their parents and only thinks about money. My grandmother called me crying, saying I was destroying the family. And I just thought, where were all of you when my parents committed fraud against me? Why isn't anyone calling them the villains in this story? The legal process took like 4 months. It was 4 months of constant anxiety, of spending money I didn't have on lawyers, of having to tell my story over and over to different people. At one of the preliminary hearings, I saw my parents with their lawyer. My mom looked at me like I was the devil incarnate. Carter was there too, arms crossed, looking super bored with the whole thing. I felt like garbage, I'm not gonna lie. Part of me still couldn't believe we were there, in a courthouse, family against family. Eventually, before going to trial, my parents' lawyer proposed a settlement. They would pay the full $85,000 plus my legal fees, which by that point were like $8,000. Total $93,000. In exchange, I would drop the lawsuit and we would sign an agreement that I wouldn't take legal action against them again, for this matter. My lawyer advised me to accept, saying that although we would probably win at trial, this saved us time and more money in fees. I accepted. We signed the agreement at the mediator's office. We didn't even make eye contact during the entire meeting. The money arrived in my account like 2 weeks later, $93,000. The first thing I did was pay the $85,000 of the loan directly. Seeing that balance drop from $170,000 to $85,000 was surreal. I still had debt, but at least it was the debt I had anticipated, the debt I had consciously signed for. I used the remaining $8,000 to pay off my credit card and the final lawyer fees. And just like that, after almost a year of absolute nightmare, I was finally where I was supposed to be from the beginning. But the family, well, that's destroyed. I haven't spoken to my parents since we signed the agreement like 3 months ago. Carter still has me blocked on everything. Some relatives still talk to me, but there's always that tension, that elephant in the room nobody wants to mention. My grandmother still calls me occasionally asking me to make peace with my parents, telling me that life is too short to be angry. And I just think, Grandma, it's not anger. It's that I literally can never trust them again. It's not about pride or resentment. It's about two people I completely trusted, betraying me in the most fundamental way possible. Sometimes, I feel guilty. I wonder if I did the right thing, if there was another way to handle all this. I think about the Christmases I'm not going to have with my family anymore, the birthdays, the family moments that basically don't exist for me anymore. But then I remind myself that I didn't destroy this family. They did, when they decided to take out $170,000 in my name and give half to Carter without telling me anything. They destroyed it when they stopped paying our agreement and forced me to take legal action. I was just defending myself. Last week I ran into Carter at the supermarket. It was super awkward. We both saw each other. I was in the cereal aisle and he was like 10 meters away. For a second I thought maybe he would say something, that maybe there would be some kind of acknowledgement or apology or whatever, but he just grabbed his cart and went to the next aisle. And honestly, I think that hurt more than if he had insulted me or yelled at me. That complete indifference, like I was a stranger, like we hadn't shared a womb, like we hadn't grown up together, like we hadn't been brothers for 23 years. Now I'm focusing on my career, on building my life independently. My internship turned into a full-time position with a decent salary. I'm paying my $85,000 loan aggressively. I hope to pay it off in like 7 years if things go well. I'm going to therapy because all this definitely left me with some issues, like I trust people less now. I have problems with financial anxiety. All those things. But I'm working on it. I'm trying to rebuild myself without them. It's weird to think that at 23 you're basically an emotional orphan by choice, but here we are. I guess this is growing up the hard way, learning that family isn't always a safe haven, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. I don't know if I'll ever reconcile with them. Honestly, I don't see it happening, but I'm trying to make peace with that. I'm trying to make peace with the idea that it's okay to cut ties when those ties are drowning you.